All right, we're starting off the report this week out at one of the landmarks on the Delta in Moore's Riverboat. I'm here with Crystal. Crystal, you're the manager out here?
I'm one of the managers.
One of the managers, but she's the boss. We're going to call Crystal the boss out here. So, you know, we've been doing a few reports for some of these Delta restaurants, and I'll let you know, if you don't know where Moore's Riverboat is, it's right on the McCallum River. It's about, what, a half a mile from the channel, a couple miles from B&W. It's pretty centrally located, so you can drive here from downtown, you can come out from Frank's Track, from Perry's, from B&W. It's boat close, and you can also get here by car off Highway 12, the Delta Loop. And what's the address out here?
It's 160 West Brannan Island Rd.
And what are your hours to start with?
We open at 11 and close at 9, 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday.
And I had a hamburger today. It was great. The prices are reasonable. What I'd like to talk about is, if you're coming up here by boat, there's plenty of outside dining, and you have full view of your boat. So guys that are bass fishing out here, striper fishing, you don't have to worry about leaving your stuff on deck because it's sitting right behind you. My wife had the tomato salad. She said that was great, and I mentioned it was reasonable price. You have a full bar?
Yeah, we do have a full bar, and on Thursday we do a burger special. All the burgers are half price with happy hour treats, and that runs all day from 11 to 9.
And I can say, if you want to come out here for dinner, it's a little higher price, but they have a really great dinner menu. Everything from twin lobster tails to prime rib. And you know, so it might be a place you want to visit out here with your wife and family some evening. It's beautiful out here this time of year. The temperatures are
perfect.
Yeah,
October.
Plenty of shade and fans, and so it's a place you got to check out. It's been here for over 50 years. I remember coming out here when my parents were driving me around in the boat, and I'm not that old, but you know, I remember it from years back. It was always a lot of fun. People partying and different things you do here out on the Delta after dark. So anything you want to add to that, Crystal?
It's a lot of fun. Come out and see us.
Okay, so come out to Moore's Riverboat, see Crystal, tell them you heard about it in deep on the Delta, and that's it. Let's get into the fishing report. Thanks, Crystal. All right, let's get right into the report, and this is the report for September 23rd, and I'd like to start off talking about river conditions because it's having effect on both the stripers and the largemouth, and the fishing has been good. I'll even classify it as very good. And what we have is fall conditions, the transition from fall to winter, and water temperatures are dropping. A couple weeks ago we had 78, 80 degree water. Now that water is starting off in the morning around 73, and it may be reaching up to 75, and that's turning on the bite. What I like about what's happening right now with the weather, it's kind of an Indian summer, and it is gradually dropping the water temperatures. We're still having warm days, cooler nights, the days are getting shorter, but the water temperature is dropping gradually. And if this trend continues and we have an Indian summer, I think we're going to have another month to maybe 2 months of very consistent fishing. It may not be on fire, but it's going to be really fun fishing. Now, the alternative to that is if we went right from summer and you know, winter came on right all of a sudden, and you know, we started getting storms in and water temperatures dropped really quickly, we'd have a short bite window of maybe sometimes 10 days, 2 weeks, and we'd have really good fishing, but then it would drop off into wintertime conditions. So I would much prefer to have it like we're doing now, where it's just a slow burn and we have a lot more time to fish. So keeping that in mind, let's start off with the stripers, and I'll start off with the report from Jeff Soo Hoo from Soo Hoo Sportfishing. And I'll tell you what, he's flat out on the fish. He's getting 20, 30, 40 fish days. Most of the fish are between 3 and 6 pounds. Every now and then he'll pick up a double-digit fish from about 10 to 12 pounds, but mostly school size. Jeff's key to success is finding clean, green water, and I'm going to be interviewing Jeff here hopefully in the next couple weeks, and I will talk to Jeff in detail about the exact water that he's looking for. I know clean and green means a little something different to everyone, but I'll hit him up on what he actually means by the clean green water. But he's looking for clean green water, and he's drifting live bait, and he's doing very well. The fish are spread out over the San Joaquin and the Sacramento side. So he's looking around, he's finding the schools that are biting, and he's staying on them and really doing well. So that's the report from Jeff Soo Hoo from Soo Hoo Sportfishing. Haps Bait is also reporting good striper fishing. Most of their customers are trolling, and they're trolling the standard Yuzuri with a worm trailer. A lot of the fish are coming from down by Decker Island, the power lines. Also, Montezuma Slough is kicking out quite a few fish. Also, they're reporting that more and more salmon are coming in, and there's not a slug of them, but they're trickling in. They're still catching fish, out in the bay, but those fish are starting to move in. They got a couple more reports of fish coming right off the Rio Vista public pier there. The guys that are out in boats seem to be catching the salmon down by the ferry. So this is a good time of year if you are a striper fisherman out in the Rio Vista area to do a multi-species trip. Get out early, fish for salmon. If you're staying late, you can also fish for salmon. Then midday, you can switch over and fish for striper, and you never know, you might get a big salmon and a big striper on the same day. So that is the report from Haps Bait. And also I want to remind you that the Rio Vista Derby is coming up October, and don't quote me on this, I'm just off the top of my head. I think it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. But for you guys who are looking to fish that derby, make sure you look up on the Chamber of Commerce, and you'll get those dates. And that's a fun derby. It's a 73rd annual derby, and I know a lot of you guys fish that every year, and they're having a great cash prize, and it'll be a fun derby to fish. Also been in contact with tons and tons of people are sending me information and reports on their fishing, which is always good, because I think I mentioned last week that when the fishing's not so good, I don't get so many reports. When the fishing's good, everyone wants to talk about it. So everyone's talking about it. They're sending me a bunch of pictures, and I'm going to go through some of these pictures in just a minute. But the bait shops are saying the exact same thing. It's not an on-fire bite, but all of their customers are happy. They all seem to be catching fish. And all the bass guys that are out there, largemouth bass guys, seem to be catching quite a few fish, up to about 5 or 6 pounds, stripers, while they are fishing for bass. So that's another good multi-species trip to take, stripers and largemouth bass this time of year. Okay, let's get it right into the largemouth bass situation, and I'm going to be running through a few pictures here with some of the reports that I've gotten. You're going to see that they're catching quality fish on literally everything from jerk baits to crankbaits to spinner baits. A lot of big fish have come from punching. It's all over the board. You can pretty much throw anything now, whatever you like is going to catch fish. But let's get into what kind of key in on what the more successful fishermen have been doing. Now, Hook, Line, and Sinker had their first tournament this week, and it took 23 pounds to win. They had several bags over 20 pounds and a lot of high teen bags, 16, 17, 18, 19 pound bags. And you have to remember, the Hook, Line, and Sinker tournament is not a professional tournament. It's local guys that are out there fishing. They're good sticks, obviously, but it's not a professional tournament. So those are really good weights for this time of year, and very consistent weights. Now, the word was in that tournament that the bigger bags and the winners were mostly punching. So if you want to catch big fish right now, punching is a very good technique to use. Now, what I have been doing, and my favorite bait in the last week, has been the Vision 110. And I'll talk about what I've been doing, because I think it's in line with pretty much what everyone else is doing. I'm throwing quicker moving baits. The fish seem to be transitioning over from slower baits like plastics and worms to crankbaits, spinner baits, jerk baits. There's still a topwater bite. I'm getting reports from people that are catching fish on frogs and topwaters early and late. There is a morning bite and an evening bite, but it hasn't been great for me. My suggestion, if you're coming out from out of town, it's really not worth getting up super early to hit that morning bite or staying till dark. Now, the bite is really tide related. It doesn't matter if it's high outgoing, low incoming. As long as it's moving, the fish seem to be biting. And the nice thing is the bite windows now are anywhere from about an hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours long. So, a few weeks ago when we were talking about the bite windows being very short, you may catch 3 or 4 fish in a 20-minute period and then it drops off. The bite windows are longer, and that has to do with the cooler temperatures. These fish are moving around more and they're feeding more actively for longer periods of time. So keep that in mind. You want to fish a moving tide. Doesn't matter if it's coming in or going out. I've been throwing baits that move faster, like the Vision 110 jerk bait. I'm actually going to be throwing probably 3 jerk baits on 3 separate rods, and I'll probably throw 2 smaller baits like the Vision 110, and I'll use those baits to change out color. And then on my 3rd jerk bait rod, I'll throw a 4.5 or 5 inch just to see if that bigger bait it may pick up a bigger fish. Now, another thing I want to talk about, I've been throwing some swim baits that I'm catching fish on, and also I'm throwing some I'm throwing the Liechty, which is a topwater wake bait, and I'm starting to get fish to come up and hit that, and I've gotten a couple of really big fish coming up and just boiling underneath it. Now those fish aren't really ready to go right now, but as that temperature drops, for you swim bait fishermen, now through October is the time to put either a big swim bait, topwater swim bait, a wake bait, or a glide bait, and you can catch some really big fish. I have been using mostly shad colors, but I want you to take a look at this guy here. Just a minute, I got something in my live well that I accidentally snagged this morning, and I'm going to tell you why you should keep a gold color swim bait on. Here it is, little golden shiner. Man, these are killer baits. So if you can throw one of these bigger baits about 5, 6, 7 inches that has this gold color in it, that can be a really good color out here to catch some bigger fish on. All right, so what am I doing? I'm throwing jerk baits. I've been catching a few fish on crankbaits, but I really don't like fishing crankbaits. I prefer to fish the jerk baits this time of year. Smaller plastic swim baits like Kitex. Underspins have been doing very well. I got a lot of reports that guys are catching them on white spinner baits. That's going to be a good bait to use throughout the winter. So you guys that haven't been out here, I really suggest getting out here. Very light pressure. Skiers are really non-existent out here. There's a few, cruisers coming up and down, and a few jet skis, but very light pressure. It's just beautiful out here. And as the days start getting cooler and cooler, these are the days that you can come out and fish for 10 or 12 hours and not get beat up by the sun, or not freeze to death. So it's a really good time to be out here. I want to add one more thing. This week I was fishing islands. I told you last week I was fishing rock and tule. I'm still getting fish on rock and tule, but the size wasn't good for me, so I went out to the islands, and I am fishing the central delta, let's just say from the channel all the way down to Railroad, if you guys know where that is. You know that Old River, Middle River has a bunch of islands in it. I am fishing the islands, and I'm catching fish. The last island that I fished, I generally fish on the inside or the outside of the island, depending on where the current is, but I fish around the island completely, and it's about a 100-yard island, and I caught fish all the way around the island, and I caught fish on the end point, and I caught fish in the cut in between the island. So when you have an island here and an island here and an island here, I usually fish either the inside or the channel side of the island, and I don't fish the cuts. But in this particular trip, I went around the entire island and I caught fish everywhere. So the fish are spread out. You just have to keep going, wait for that tide to move, and the fish will start biting. Make sure you are moving, and make sure you're throwing moving baits if you want to catch a lot of fish. If you want to catch the bigger fish, stick to punching. With that, man, I'm really telling you guys, now is the time to be out here to have a lot of fun. And I thank you guys for watching. Make sure you subscribe. We'll see you next week.